gentlemen in Southern California, this is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, you betcha we're live. This is Mike Alexander, Radio Free Los Angeles. Delighted to be back with you again. I am joined tonight by Jonathan Wilson, as usual. Not only back from the Low Country, but back from yesterday, Constitution Day, at the Claremont Institute gathering. And it
was a busy weekend for us.
It was. Now, of course, Constitution Day is actually, I think,
Tuesday.
on Tuesday the 16th. But the Claremont Institute had its annual program at Chapman University Law School. Now, be sure to take down the number here. We hope you'll want to be part of the program, 866-870-5752. And don't forget to go to our website. Give us some love. Give us some support at californiaschoolchoice.org. Later in the program, I've got him sitting here patiently right now, but later in the program, we're going to be joined by Andrew Ko, and that's K-O, and we hope it's going to be a K-O in November in San Marino. He's decided to throw his hat in the ring. He's running, believe it or not, a write-in ballot campaign. So concerned is he about the dire financial condition in which the city of San Marino finds itself, along with hundreds of other cities throughout the state of California. And you, of course, have heard this many times before if you're a regular listener, and I know you are. But there's a lot going on in this state that we want to cover here. I want, first of all, just a little lighthearted quip. Tonight, there's a guy named Clarence Chappell, C-H-A-P-E-L-L.
Yeah, I know Clarence.
Yeah, Clarence, great guy, black fella, down in the Crenshaw area. Met him here several years ago, and I've been on his email ever since. And every night, religiously, Clarence sends out 3 emails. Well, one of them he sent out tonight. I just had to read for you. It's just the headline. It was just funny. And he said, "Nation torn between watching Democrat debates and sticking their face in a blender."
That's good.
And, after listening to him, Clarence, you get the quote of the night. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think he listens to the show.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well, call in, Clarence. We'd love to talk to you. He is just absolutely tireless and never gives up being a conservative. But we are now full-blown into the political season, and today you, Jonathan, and others from our organization, you were over at the Glendale Burbank Republican Assembly. Give us a report on that.
Yeah, the Glendale Burbank Republican Assembly had their annual summer party, their 80th annual, and it was great. George Papadopoulos was there. He was the keynote speaker with his lovely wife, Simona. And Eric Early, who's going to be on the show tonight, who's running for Congress against Schiff.
What time is Eric calling?
He's going to be calling in at 8:30.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep Andrew here.
And we had 5 of our California School Choice team members there.
Yes.
With our California School Choice T-shirts.
Yes.
We got 110 signatures on the petition today.
But
so if you haven't signed our petition, go to californiaschoolchoice.org and sign, and please share it with your friends and family.
Absolutely. And George Papadopoulos is, this crowd listening to this show undoubtedly knows who he is, but just in case you don't know, he was one of the peripheral members of the Trump campaign team who was entrapped by Comey and Clapper and the rest of those people into trying to commit a crime. There's a lot going on that still. But he decided to write a book. He decided to go public about it, and as the saying goes, the rest is history. We now know what happened to him, even though he had to enter a plea of guilty. I don't know whether it was to a charge of a false statement or failure to register, whatever the deal was, but that guy got screwed. There's no question about it. But he has decided to fight back. He's gone public, and he apparently has other. I was surprised when you told me about where he's moving to.
Well, yes, they just recently moved to California. I'm not sure how long ago, but he said when he got here, he was surprised at what a mess the state is.
Yeah,
and so I think he's passionate about jumping in, and he's been. They're trying to recruit him to run for a congressional seat down in Orange County.
Yeah, they got to go back and get it. Well, there's been, in addition to that, recently here, there was and we're not Republican fanboys, but I'm reporting on this just like I report on the insanity that the Democrats engage in. We're very tough on Republicans, but they did have a meeting down at Palm Desert or whatnot, and one of the representatives of Trump's campaign was there, and he repeated a lot of things that we talk about a lot here about the importance of California. But I've got a couple of trick questions for you as they were reviewing it. What state do you think cast the most votes for Trump?
California.
Right.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That's right. Yeah. California, because of our size. Don't forget out there, folks, there are 5, 6, 7 million people who are registered Republicans or declined to states or no party preference, whatever you want to call them. There's anywhere from 5 to 7 million people that think just like we do. Enough people to make up an entire state of Michigan. California's conservatives are among the most conservative and thoughtful group of people you'd ever wanted to run into. Now, of course, the other thing they said is something that I've said 1,000 times in public speeches and presentations, and that is, of course, that California is the top state for political donations to the Republican presidential campaign. Probably also the Democrat campaign. But California...
And a lot of that money comes from the unions to the Democrats.
Correct.
In California. Correct. I mean, this is their main funding source.
That's right.
Teachers' unions, public employee unions.
That's right. And that's a good partisan reason for if you don't love your children, but you do love your party, it's a good reason to get rid of the public school monopoly. Sometimes kids are hard to love. I'm kidding. All right. Don't send me emails. All right. But in any event, we've got a lot of other news. But since we've got Mr. Early calling in at 8:30, let's get started with Andrew Ko. Andrew Ko, as I mentioned earlier in the program, is a resident of San Marino, and we met him here over, I guess, about a year and a half ago when we were exploring the San Marino's financial condition in the context of the last municipal election. And Andrew's raised serious questions about the San Marino Unified so-called School District and their money, and I'd have to say that he and others were a leading force in defeating that bond that they wanted to float down there for, what was it, $70 million? $148. God, I can't. It's amazing. So let me introduce to you right now Andrew Ko. Andrew, welcome to Radio Free Los Angeles.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Is this mic working?
Yeah, just.
All right, just put a little closer. First things first, how long have you lived in San Marino?
11 years now.
And you pretty much raised your kids there as well.
That's right.
All right. And professionally, what are you doing now, and what have you done before? Because people are going out to elect like to have some idea of what their councilman's background is.
My education and a good part of my career was in engineering,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went into banking, and that was when I came back to LA. I was overseas for about 10 years,
Right.
and I left banking and worked for a few customers, and then for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been consulting for a couple of individuals, business consulting.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what brought me to think about running for city council.
Right.
Not that I have a political career aspiration or anything, but as an engineer, I want to solve problems, and San Marino has a lot. And
Yes.
I mean, writing to the city council or talking to the city council people, it doesn't seem to help. So I finally decided, better put my money where my mouth is and
Right.
and go and see if I can get elected.
Sure.
If I don't try, I'll never know.
Yeah. Now, right now, your conviction, your sense of urgency, developed after the ballots were closed. So you're running a write-in campaign. So those ballots are going to drop here at the. That's election parlance. They're going to go in the mail. Here at the very end of the month. What day do you think they're going in the mail?
I think they're supposed to go in the mail on October 4th. Friday.
No, not October 4th. Oh, October 4th.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
all right, I'm
the
sorry.
mail-in ballots go
Yeah.
out, and I think they
I was like,
hit
November.
people's
Yeah.
mailboxes around the week of the 7th
Right.
for write-in.
Good. And when they get that ballot, of course, they have the two candidates that are on there. Then there's a place on the ballot or the
jacket.
or the jacket that permits you to write in the name. And what words do they need to use? I know it's a little bit early. We'll come back to this. But
Well, there are two things the voter has to write in. One,
Yes.
on the line that says office, they should write city council. And then on the next line, they should write my name, Andrew Coe.
Andrew Coe. Standard spelling on Andrew, last name K-O. And which I like, man. K-O as a knockout. So, we'll go get them there. What is it that push you over the edge? I mean, you've had a lot of problems with these people. You're a successful businessman, and you've listened to the city council with I don't know what, their fingers crossed, their tongue in their cheek. Tell the people in San Marino how eager they are to hear from you and how open to suggestions that they are. But you found yourself frustrated by them. Give us a couple of examples.
The last few months, we've had a lot of community meetings because Metro wants to give the city $32 million to open up Huntington Drive, Sierra Madre, and San Gabriel so that they can increase the throughput of cars because the 710 extension failed.
Yes.
And Huntington currently, it's like 38,000 cars a day already. And they and the prevailing the posted speed limit is 40, but currently it's about 48. The police department writes less than one ticket a day from their own records.
Yeah.
And Metro's own estimate is that if they synchronize the traffic lights, the speed limit will go up to 55. And we got a petition going, submitted over 1,000 signatures to the city council to ask them to reject all Metro funding, but yet one or two projects is still hanging around.
Right.
And one of them, this is the part that is very interesting, is has to do with school safety. The parents in the morning, they queue up to drop their kids off, and then in the afternoon they queue up to pick them up.
Right.
So another resident and I, Dale Patterson, we went out to the middle school and we measured all the lanes of Huntington, the width, and then the same thing at Carver and in front of the high school, and we came up with a suggestion to make the right-hand lane, whether it's the number 3 lane or number 4 lane, no parking so that the parents can wait right next to the sidewalk. And it would probably cost $1,000 to try it out. And
it didn't cost enough, Andrew.
I know. And so the Department of Public Works wants to cut concrete, wants to do all this stuff, and we sent it to the city council 2 times at least.
Right.
And to me, as an engineer, you always want to think about KISS, which is keep it simple, stupid, right?
Right.
But the Department of Public Works seems to be thinking NIH, not invented here, so it must not be a good solution.
Right.
And they're still proposing cutting concrete.
Right.
And Dale and I, a lot of us, we talked about it, is why don't they just try it? All it takes is a little red paint and a couple of no parking signs. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then go back and do something else, but not the Department of Public Works.
Now, a lot of you out there, we're going to get into the San Marino situation a lot deeper here in just a moment, but a lot of you out there might be tempted to tune out, and I don't want you to. Stay with us, because the problems in San Marino, as you surely must know, having listened to the show for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, you must know that the problems of San Marino are the same problems that you will find in your city. So listen carefully, especially as we go into the financial crisis that San Marino finds itself in, and Andrew's observations and the solutions that we must implement in order to address this problem. Your city, your county, the state of California is nothing more than San Marino writ large, or larger. But as it turns out, the real problems in San Marino, what's sticking in your craw is not their unwillingness to save $5,000 or $10,000. The financial problems in San Marino are actually much, much more serious than that. Maybe you could tell us what you've learned from your review of San Marino's finances.
The big thing that pops up is the pension liability. Mm-hmm. And on the low end, if you use a unreasonable discount rate of 7%, the city owes CalPERS about $33 million.
Right. Now, let me explain that to you, folks. We call this a pension debt. Pension debt, any of you who own or operate a business or employed by a business, typically you're involved in some kind of a pension plan, whether it's a traditional one or a 401k, and money's taken out of your bank, out of your paycheck every couple of weeks or whatever the period is, and then your employer matches it and puts in his contribution or their contribution, and that money is then by law remitted to the pension plan company within a couple of weeks. Those are called deferrals because what they represent are really deferred wages. So right now in the city of San Marino, how much in deferred wages are you able to calculate that they're going to owe long term?
Well, if you use the CalPERS number at 3% discount rate, it's $120 million that they owe altogether. And then if you use, some people fudge around with the numbers and use a 7% discount rate, which is not realistic because today you won't even get 3% because 10-year treasuries are less than 2%.
Right.
And I don't understand why the city council doesn't care about our employees enough to find a way to pay down the pension liability so that when they retire, they will have a fully funded retirement pension because the budget keeps going up. They keep putting in 2% salary increments, but I think the city council owes it to the employees to explain to them, you want 2% now and not have a pension when you retire?
Right.
Or come to some understanding. But you can't always build in salary increments. In the real world, companies don't always give employees a salary increment year after year after year.
Right.
And instead of decreasing the budget by 10% like the mayor called for, it's gone up.
And we're going to have to cap salaries. You know, it's so hard to do numbers, but you know, our adversaries in the unions and the big spenders and the special interests that run our cities, counties, and states count on the fact that numbers are hard to explain, and they also count on the fact that listeners get bored. Don't. This is the money, so pay close attention. Down in San Marino, under CalPERS calculations, right now their actuarial liability, that is what they're actually going to have to pay their employees over their lifetimes. They use life expectancy tables and all that sort of thing. It's a minimum of $112 million. Okay. but they only have assets on hand of $83 million. So there's a gap there. And that means that right now, at a minimum, as of the end of 2017, they were $30 million underwater. Now, how the hell, you might ask yourself, can they owe $112 million and be $30 million short? Well, answer, they were hoping that this $83 million in assets would generate 7% compounded over the next 30 years. Only there's nobody in America that believes that. Certainly the bond markets don't believe it. Insurance companies don't believe it. The United States government doesn't believe it. But they believe it down there in La La Land in 91108. As a matter of fact, when the adults take over and they use a more realistic discount rate or rate of return, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, that actual obligation, their market liability, what they're actually going to have to come up with over time is really going to be $199 million as opposed to $112 million. So you've got that $70 or $80 million worth of variation, and that $7 or $80 million is your money down there. And ladies and gentlemen, this is happening in every city in Southern California. And they're lying to you about it. They're ignoring it. And as I've said before, nobody I've been talking about this in politics for the last 10 years. I've been on this radio program for almost 2 years now, and I have yet to have anybody call in and claim that $10,000 cash prize to sit down with us and walk us through it and show us how we get through this. We're not going to do it. So you've got anywhere from a $30 million to $116 million, $30 million to $116 million that you owe your employees down there that you haven't paid them. But that's not your only problem down there, is it? Tell us about your deferred maintenance.
Well, I think the last election, the city council, they did a study, and they're like $40-50 million worth of deferred maintenance.
Right.
That's one thing. And then now they have they're putting a special public safety parcel tax on the November 5th ballot.
That'll fix it.
Well, they said it is for paramedic, police, and fire services, but then the city manager wrote in a letter that says that it is actually used for another reason, and they said that the continued accrual of general reserves and transfer of funds from the general reserves to the capital improvement to do the deferred maintenance is very dependent on this public safety tax. So the real purpose of the tax is to be used as a tool so they can take money out and put it into the capital project. So they're not being truthful with the voter as to how the public safety tax is really used. And it's in writing. It's on their website in the budget papers.
Right. So they're advertising it as a public safety tax when, in fact, there's no public safety crisis in San Marino. What there is a budget crisis. That is a spending problem that they have down there. And when we look at San Marino and all these other cities, they've got the same problem. They hire too many people to do too many things, and they pay them too much to do it. And that day is coming. I just ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if you live in San Marino or any other city, you know, how many? What's the population down there?
I think about 13,000 with about 4,200 homes.
Yeah. So all this amount of money, you've got to take that almost. What have we got? 116 million divided by
Mike, if you
116. What have you got?
If you took that higher number and divided by roughly 4,000 homes, each household is going to owe $28,000. And if they think this public safety parcel tax of $1,000 or $1,500 is a lot, wait till they start to do a parcel tax of $28,000 to try and pay off this pension liability.
Right, and that was just the amount in principle that was owed at the end of 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, that number out there is growing. You look outside your door. You think that's kudzu vine? It's not. It's the pension obligation. Now, we got the 8:30 hour coming up. I'm going to ask Andrew to stay. Can you stay for a while? Yeah, we've got another fellow calling.
He's my ride home.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. And who's coming on at 8:30?
Eric Early.
Candidate for Congress.
California, 28th District, Congressional Districts against Adam Schiff.
Don't miss it. We'll be back. Radio Free Los Angeles, back with you after the break.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
Yes, we are live. Once again, Radio Free Los Angeles. Mike Alexander and Jonathan Wilson here. And we have still in the studio Andrew Ko, candidate for City Council in San Marino. We're going to return to him. We're half expecting a call from a gentleman who's have filed against Adam Schiff, and there's a guy we want to hear from. He's going to have a tough race, but however we get to him, we will. Whenever he's ready, put him through. In any event, Andrew, let's get back to you in San Marino, which, as I've said, ladies and gentlemen, is not San Marino. Hey, by the way, before I forget, our number here, if you want to be part of the program, and I hope you will, is 866-870-5752. Please call and be part of the show. Got a great guest here tonight. Andrew, returning back to the city of San Marino, you focused attention on the two big numbers, their unacknowledged pension debt, and that is only partially acknowledged. You focused also on the high cost of the deferred maintenance, plus a general inefficiency of the city, poor financial control, so forth and so on. What are your proposals? What do you see as the solutions, the concrete steps that the city can take, the easy ones and the hard ones?
Well, I think one of the first things we should do is to kind of ring fence the pension liability, kind of cap it. And several years ago, I had written to the city council saying that, the U.S. Navy, when you sign up now, you're not on a pension, you're on a 401k now. Mm-hmm. Even the military is going to that.
Yeah.
And we should look into new employees being on 401ks,
right,
so that we don't keep adding to the hole that we're already in.
Right. Now, 401k, ladies and gentlemen, most of you know what it is, but in financial terms, it's called a defined contribution. That is, we know what somebody has contributed, and that's fixed, so that every payday you're done with each other, assuming they send the check in. So the first thing is that each new employee goes on a 401k program. Go ahead.
And they really have to start thinking longer term about what we have. Retirees now that are getting a pension, and we're going to have more retirees going on. How are we going to pay them when the time comes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, let's take a break. we got our other fellow in here. We now have Eric from who's a candidate. Let me see if I get this button right. Eric, are you there, my friend? I pressed a button. Eric, do I have you in here yet? Technical problem. So, hey, Eric, hang in out there, and we'll fix this here, and we'll get you on. We have the best board man in the world. He'll fix this thing, right, Jeff? All right. So at any rate, so back to San Marino for a few seconds here. So we have the first thing is to cap on the new ones. Now, the old employees are a special kind of problem because they seem to be protected by the California rule, and the California Supreme Court has not yet ruled definitively in this area as to whether cities can actually reform their defined benefit program. A defined benefit is, the traditional government type pension. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing that we can do. What would you propose that the city of San Marino do in that area?
Well, I think the main thing is to contain the liability you already have. And like I said earlier, that maybe the new employees, they should really think about putting them on a 401k. And I think at the last election, there was a campaign promise to run a city like a business. And that hasn't come through, because if you're a business and your expenses are exceeding your revenue, you don't go and raise prices. You go and cut costs. And that, with the parcel taxes, that's essentially what you're doing. You're raising the cost of services that you're providing to residents when you can't make the ends meet, rather than cutting the costs and running it differently.
Yes.
Yeah, and
well, the California Taxpayers Union was very vocal in the last city council election in San Marino, and you're quite correct. They had a group of about 3. Ken Udy was running, and okay, hey, he's ready here. Well, I can't see him on the board, so maybe you could just patch him through. Hello, Eric. How are you? Eric, how do you spell your last name?
Early. Is this Jonathan?
This is Mike Alexander.
Hi, Mike.
This is Jonathan right here. I'm right across the table.
Okay, hey, guys.
Nice to have you on, Eric.
Yeah. Eric, we had you on here on the show here about a year or so ago when you were running for AG.
Right.
And you were running about the state doing a good job, and apparently you got an appetite for getting involved in politics, and now you want to take on the granddaddy of them all, Adam Schiff.
You got it. He is the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah.
And just cleaning it up, when I was running against Attorney General, I was running because the state was doing a terrible job.
Yes.
And it still is. It's a mess, as I know you guys know.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and this audience in particular, being a very conservative audience here on AM 870, The Answer, they know very well who Adam Schiff is. But, it's always worthwhile to go back and cover this guy. I was very much involved in the campaign in 2010 when John Colbert ran against Schiff back then. We had a very active campaign, but going up against that registration was tough. Yep. Since then, the Schiff district moved a little bit to the west, embraces all or most of Glendale and a few other places. As you've gone out there to talk with people, what has been the reaction about Adam Schiff's bad behavior in this phony Russia investigation?
Well, when you speak to Republicans and you speak to independents who largely vote Republicans, they think like I do, that this guy is a national disgrace.
Mm-hmm.
He's a total liar. He has ignored our district for 20-plus years that he's had this office, and that he's all about Adam Schiff. He's all about moving this political career forward, and we need a change. I mean, this guy is a disaster, and so I get a lot of that out there.
Yeah,
and I hear that from around the country, quite frankly.
What about Democrats? You talk to any of them?
Well,
I know it's hard, but I mean, you're out there campaigning. Do you ever get a glimmer of dissatisfaction with him, or are they just mostly robotic?
Unfortunately, they're mostly robotic.
Mm-hmm.
He tells they love the anti-Trump rhetoric that comes from this guy.
Yes.
And so, that's where everything else breaks down. But, there are other serious issues in our district that cross the line from conservative to Democrat, starting probably with this homelessness epidemic that until like 2 days ago when he tweeted about it, I don't think Schiff had ever said the word homelessness.
Right.
And as the true political hack that he is, now he's acting all concerned about it.
Right.
And it was fascinating that his first utterance of the word homelessness came when he was criticizing President Trump for saying that he's going to get involved to try and fix the problem.
Yes.
So, this is typical Adam Schiff, He looks for any reason to go after the president and make up something. And every time he does that, every time Schiff does that, he does that to cover up one of his many failings. And in this case, he's ignored homelessness. He's ignored the problem of severe mental illness. He's ignored that policies that he and his comrades up in Sacramento support, such as Proposition 47, that have put so many people out on the street from prisons and taken away the incentive for drug rehabilitation, that has led to many of these people being on the streets. Schiff ignores all this stuff, and so these are subjects that can be discussed with people across the board, because people are tired of seeing this in their lives, and they're very concerned about this human tragedy that's all around us.
Yes. Let me ask you, before I forget, Eric, could you give us a little bit of background on yourself for the voters, because a large part of our audience is in your district. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am an attorney. I started my own law firm a number of years ago with 5 other attorneys. We broke away from a big fancy Century City law firm. We're up to 30 lawyers. I've been the managing partner of this law firm, so I run the law firm ever since we opened our doors. We are now considered by U.S. News as one of the top boutique law firms in the nation. We practice in all the courts of California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Florida. We're starting to move into New York. We do business litigation, and we fight for our clients in the courts. We represent all kinds of amazing clients. And so that's what I am by background. I'm a dad. I've got a grown son and daughter. And my fiance has a son and daughter, rather 2 sons. One of whom is in the Navy right now. She's a Navy brat herself. She grew up, as she likes to say, behind barbed wire on Navy bases all around various parts of the country.
Exactly.
And, we support our president, and we support the greatness of this nation. My parents, who were both legal, with an L, immigrants to this country, instilled a tremendous patriotism and pride for America in my sister and in me. My dad, soon after he got here, he enlisted in the Marines. He was in the 1st Marine Division that fought in North Korea in some of the most heinous battles the Marines have ever been in.
First Mardiv.
Yeah.
Frozen chosen.
Exactly. And, luckily he came back. And, he loved this country, and I love this country. And, I see what's happening with this far left sort of attempted creeping takeover of so much of our country. And
well, let's talk about some of those things. Yeah. You have identified your principal criticism of Schiff, besides his dishonesty, is that in addition to all the other things he does or doesn't do, honest or dishonest, he has failed to pay attention to this district. And, of course, he subscribes to most of the wacky ideas that the rest of his party does, and he can be expected to support the craziest of the crazies for president. So it ought to be a good opportunity, ought to be good hunting, Eric. But maybe you can identify some of the top problems that affect this district, or affect all districts that he has ignored or dealt with in a defective way?
Well, I touched upon some already: the homelessness, the severe mental illness, and the drug abuse. These are very important issues to me. I think that anybody who has any common sense and is intellectually honest realizes that the mass shootings are the result of those who are severely mentally ill. Mm-hmm. If you look back in history, and we started with we had sort of mental institutions. Then Big Pharma convinced the world that they could let people out on the streets and take care of people in a more quote-unquote humane way by drugging them into sort of oblivion. And what we have now, and Skid Row is perhaps ground zero of this, is we have severely mentally ill people in many places throughout our district, throughout our state, throughout our country.
We got to make Congress.
Yeah. And in Congress.
Yeah.
Families know these folks, and there's nothing we can do about them.
Right.
You can't do anything about them. In fact, the mass shooters, people know these people are nuts way before it happens. There's nothing they can do with them.
That's right.
I think we have to look seriously at involuntary commitment and creating a form of institution again for people like this.
We went down that road for decades, but as you know, back in the 80s, and I can't remember who that Indian was. He was a real American Indian, had an alcohol problem, and he was constantly being arrested for vagrancy and whatnot. And they filed a class action of some sort, and there was a settlement here certainly in California, but right here in the city of Los Angeles or L.A. County, whatever it was. But it was determined that the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment created a lot of problems for status crimes and grabbing people and incarcerating them without specific showings of immediate danger to somebody. So, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, Eric. I'm just saying
we have a huge fight on our hands. There's no doubt about it. But right now, our prisons are our largest mental institutions.
Yes.
The prisons are not set up for that. The law enforcement, which I'm a huge supporter of, is stressed to their limits, trying to take care of these folks for which they're not trained, sufficiently, and it's a huge problem. We have to. It's a difficult issue.
It is, yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But we have to deal with it.
I wasn't, believe me, Eric, I wasn't criticizing your proposal. I was just putting in a little context there. Yeah. Some of the challenges that we have going in that direction. Just to shift just a little bit. We Trump and the Democrats and the Republican Senate have passed so-called budgets that continue to add greatly to our fiscal debt and
huge problem.
And Republicans have been very reticent in supporting the president. Many of them have outright resigned and gone back to Texas out of fear of joining with the president. How do you feel about identifying with the president and working to vote against these budgets?
Well, that's sort of a double-edged question, Mike. But when it comes to President Trump, I'm a huge supporter of our president.
Yes.
I think getting beyond some of the wacky tweets and some of the things that are said, if you judge our president by his actions, this man has just done incredible things for our country, and I really do believe that on the day he was elected, God was smiling on our country.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah. When it comes to this huge financial hole that our country is in, it's a major problem.
It is, and we talk about the other problem out here about our pension problems. A lot of the biggest pension major problem. We're probably $1.5 trillion underwater, and that's money that is owed technically to all of our favorite people, and it's not going to be paid. It can't be paid, and people just aren't talking about it, just like they're not talking about our sovereign debt or our continuing fiscal deficits.
I agree with everything you just said.
It's very, very frustrating, and I applaud your candidacy because I think it's a time to start raising these issues. And the worst thing that Adam Schiff for brains, as I call him, the worst thing that this guy does is probably not his dishonesty, but his fecklessness when it comes to these major problems. And we were confronting strategic enemies that were ill-prepared to deal with. At the same time, we're running up fiscal debt.
Yes. Along those lines, I mean, the debt is a huge problem. Schiff has, of course, never said a word about it.
No.
This is the guy that, on his watch, ISIS ended up taking over a quarter or so of the Middle East. Schiff never said a word about it.
Right.
Schiff was sitting back while he knew 2 years before the last presidential election that there was Russian meddling in our election. Never said a word about it. Never said a word when Hillary Clinton was selling our iron ore to the Russian government.
That's right.
On and on and on. And yet this guy has the audacity and the temerity to claim that he's protecting us from a president who's a so-called Russian asset.
That's
and
right.
This Schiff is just a double. He's a mealy-mouthed. He speaks out of both sides out of his mouth. He acts like he thinks he's morally superior.
Oh yeah.
Which just makes me sick, quite honestly.
Yes.
And everything he says, everything is designed for his own personal political gain, with very lack of concern, serious and real concern for the security and the future of our great nation.
That's right.
And this is why I'm going to take this guy to task. I'm just so fed up with this guy, and he hasn't faced anybody like me in many years.
That's right.
And let me just jump to another subject, which I know is of big concern to the people in our district, a big concern to the people in our state, and a big concern to the people in our country. And that is, there is a creeping, what I call a creeping social justice warrior takeover of our public schools that is going on. And I know about this firsthand because I'm representing a group of great citizens up in Santa Barbara called Fair Education Santa Barbara. And we have sued the Santa Barbara Unified School District and this outfit up there called Just Community Central Coast, which is one of these social justice warrior outfits that the school district has hired at a cost now of hundreds of thousands of dollars to come in and indoctrinate these kids with anti-American, anti-this, anti-that. It's just remarkable. And the way I was brought into this was one of the citizens up there knew I'd run for attorney general. He said, "Listen, Eric, my wife managed to get into one of these seminars that were being given by this outfit up there, and she managed to get their written materials, which they won't let the people up there see."
Right.
And they sent me these written materials from this outfit hired by the school district, and it was shocking. And so we have filed a lawsuit up there to stop these people in their tracks and to cause the school board to discontinue their contract. And what I've learned from this entire process, it's remarkable the way it works. These school board members are incredibly powerful.
Hey, Eric, now, I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
And you're going to come back on. You may or may not know it, but we are the major voice for school choice. And we're kicking off. So I want you to come back and talk about this thing. I think we know some people up there, but we're coming up on the 9 o'clock hour, and I want to give you a chance to tell our audience how to reach you. It costs a lot of money to run against a guy like Adam Schiff.
That's right.
So what is your website?
It's ericearly.com, ERICEARLY.com, and all donations of any size are incredibly appreciated. I've been getting donations from around the country because Schiff is such a national pariah. So thank you for having me, Mike.
Well, it won't be the last time, man. We're going to have some fun with this guy, and I really want to talk to you about that Santa Barbara case. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had Eric Early. Go to ericearly.com. Give him some love. This guy's going up against the varsity. That would be Adam Schiff. Mike Alexander back with you after the top of the hour in the news, and we'll continue with the rest of our program.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
And we are live. Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson back with you. We had a delightful conversation with Eric Early, congressional candidate, going up against Adam Schiff. I forget what district it is here, 27, 28? 28, yeah. This is your chance to take a shot at that guy.
He sounds fired up, doesn't he?
Oh, the guy's on fire. And go to ericearly.com and give him some love and some support. He's doing. He's going to actually go out and do something, Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
Everybody in the country likes to talk about it. Well, this guy's doing something about it, so let's give him some support. We'll have him on again.
I would think he'd be able to raise money nationally.
Oh, yeah, and I think he said
Schiff
that.
is a national target now.
Oh, he is a national disgrace. Now, speaking
Maybe I'll do a website for him or something. Maybe reach out to him and see. With Nation Builder, I wonder if Eric's using Nation Builder.
I don't know. You got his number. Yeah. Hey, well, speaking of candidates, you don't have. We're still with Andrew Coe here, who is not only a radio guest tonight, but we've gotten to be good friends, and he's part of our coalition here that meets every Wednesday on school choice. This is a huge issue, and it's not going away. And the issue that we're working on is of overriding importance. It relates to so many other things, however. It relates to the attempt of a single political party in this state and the organizations that comprise it to use the power the government has to radically transform our society. You know, the fact that that Barack Obama is now gone from office and Donald Trump is there did not end. It wasn't Barack Obama's administration was not the beginning of radical transformation of American society, and it was not the end. It is ongoing. It's a radical group, and ultimately it's the same people that run everything. Now, over in San Marino, we're going to spend another few minutes with Andrew to move on to some other things. There's despite all the problems that you've outlined here, the city needs to take a couple of steps to deal with the problem. And number one, I submit, is to actually recognize the debt that they have down there, not only in the general sense of the word, but in the specific technical sense of the word in accounting. That is, they're going to have to work with advisors to put real numbers on the balance sheet. What is that's what I've recommended in the past. They haven't done it. What's your view, Andrew?
Mike? San Marino is 100 years old, and I hope to play my part by running for city council to make the next 100 years less difficult than the last 20, 30, 40 years, because the last 20, 30, 40 years is when the city no longer was able to balance its budget without the use of supplemental taxes. You can call them whatever you want, parcel tax, utility tax, emergency tax, but you can't run a business that way. And I don't know if a lot of the listeners know, but with the tax code changes, you can no longer write off on your federal tax return property tax of more than $10,000. So anybody in San Marino that owns a home that's been assessed at $1 million, you're already paying at least $10,000 in the basic LA County property tax.
Right.
And any parcel tax, any utility tax is dollar for dollar out of your pocket. And voters and San Marino residents need to realize that in 2020, the state is going to have a $13 billion school bond on the ballot, and they're thinking of another one in 2022. And in 2020, the school district might try another facilities bond, even though enrollment is declining, and they might have to find a way to plug a $2 or $2.5 million deficit hole because of declining enrollment. So people need to look at the whole big picture. How many parcel taxes are you going to be paying? You're already paying for 4 or 5. How many more can you afford? We have to play tough and make the city own up to the financial difficulties and really make some serious discussions with the employees, because I'm sure the employees want their pension to be funded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they do. Well, it's a great way to wrap up this part of your presentation, Andrew. We wish you the very best of luck down there in San Marino. And as we say so often here, San Marino's problems are the same as yours out in your city. Take a look at it. Go to transparentcalifornia.com. Look up the salaries. Go to pensiontracker.org. Plug in the name of your city, read and weep. It's awful everywhere. Now, you don't have a website yet, but here in the next few days, Jonathan and Andrew are going to get his website up there. But just search Andrew Ko. Andrew, just like it sounds, Ko, K-O as a knockout. Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on tonight to talk about not just your candidacy, but to talk about the problems which have compelled you to participate. We appreciate it, and I hope you'll stay with us here as we get through the end of the show. All right, now, we're back with you. Our telephone number here is 866-870-5752. Be sure to call and be part of the program. Meanwhile, I will go to one of our callers, Linda from Burbank. How are you this evening, Linda?
Hi. Regarding the bill that the nuisance governor signed,
yes,
that kids can't get suspended for really acting up bad.
Hey, Linda, I wanted you to be the one that raised the issue. I had printed out this article earlier. Josh Jacobs, our producer here, had given me this article. You are so right. Apparently, Gavin Newsom here has signed a new law which prevents schools from suspending disruptive children in the classroom. So I don't know what you're supposed to do with them. Leave them in the classroom, or can you send them down the hall? What do you do with them?
Teachers can do.
No, my question is, what does the law tell them that they have to do?
They can send them to the principal's office.
Yeah.
Or, if it's boys, send the boys' vice principal. If it's girls, send the girls' vice principal's office.
Yeah.
Or, in junior high, we had SA, which is called social adjustment. In high school, it was called opportunity room. They could be sent to those classes.
Yeah.
And it's not considered suspension. Any of those things I mentioned.
See, I think the whole thing here is it's part of a push for no standards, but it's mostly revenue-driven, that they don't want kids to be able to get out of those brain-dead environments. They get bored and antsy, and they're not challenged. They're nothing, and they do whatever they have to do to get the hell out of school. And it costs the schools money. In other words, it costs the unions money, and they don't care about
that's about.
It's all about revenue.
It's not about the children.
That's right. Well, Linda,
and an example of this is what happened in Parkland.
Yeah,
that kid had a history, and they could not expel him from school.
Right.
So, and then he ended up killing. I don't know how many people did he kill.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, teachers can just do what I mentioned, and it's not even in the law.
That's right. Well, Linda, we want to thank you for bringing that important story to our attention. Next up, we have Brent from Los Angeles. Good to hear from you again, Brent. And I want you to know that we saw met a friend of yours yesterday. Maybe she called you, Adele.
Oh,
Adele. And what happened was they had a seminar. They were talking about Harvard University's affirmative action program and the cases that are being filed against it. I think it's coming up before the U.S. Supreme Court. So I ended up asking the panel a question, and after that panel was over with, the gal came up to me and says, "Is that you? Are you on Radio Free Los Angeles?" I recognized that voice. Then she proceeded to tell me what a great guy you were, and how long you'd known each other. So it was a delight to meet Adele. And Adele, don't forget to go on CaliforniaSchoolChoice.org and sign up. We need you.
And she even was a fan of mine.
Yeah, she even liked him. Yeah. So nobody's perfect. Hey, Brent, what's on your mind tonight, my friend?
Well, the whole idea, I'm so glad you had Andrew Coe on and Eric Early, and this is all positive, and, it's just like when it comes down to Adam Schiff, it's anybody but Adam Schiff. I don't even know how good Eric is at this point, but he sounds wonderful so far. But it's the whole organized crime element of what we're dealing with. I think the idea is, I think we often are believing, or many people are deceived into thinking that our politicians are even attempting to solve a problem. I think
they're not.
Propaganda. Yeah.
See, I call this thing, the whole damn thing, I call a fraud, a hustle, and a con. And people come at me very often and say, "Oh, well, that's Mike. He's just going on and on." No, I mean it. And let me give you the best example here, and let's strip this pension problem down to its basics. And I mentioned this many times before. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why you need to pay attention when I'm talking about this stuff. This is a criminal enterprise down there in San Marino and your city and every other city in California that's part of this CalPERS operation. These guys have what they call pension debt. It's not pension debt. It's money that you owe to your employees. That's money that you bargained for with them in their contract, that you were supposed to set aside and is supposed to be there. And that money's not there. And in government, in cities and counties and states who participate in the so-called CalPERS program, they are able to do something that no private employer can do. And there's a reason why private employers can't do it, because they want to make sure that that money is there. You've got to set it aside. You can't let an employer hang on to your tax deductions, right? To your part of the income tax, to your FICA, to your contributions to the program. All of those monies have to be paid out within a very short time, or the Department of Labor is down there, and by God, they'll yank you up and they'll put you in jail. Also, people who run annuity programs, who take in money now, promising to pay you a certain amount of money in the future, we call those places insurance companies. And no insurance company could make these kinds of promises if they did not have the right capital reserves. In other words, if they didn't have sufficient amount of money on hand to invest, get a reasonable return on that money, a reliable, fairly predictable return on that money that would enable them to pay that monthly pension out, called an annuity, when the time came. If there was an insurance company that had a capital structure similar to the city of San Marino, similar to CalPERS, those people would be charged as criminals. This gets back to your point, Brent.
Yep.
They would be charged as criminals. They'd be locked up. And you know who would do it? the same SOBs that run CalPERS. They're called the state of California. They're called the cities. You know, they catch you stealing that money, man. You are done for. You're going to jail for a long time, and you're going to pay back every single cent. Now, the fact is that the people, in this case, on the one hand, they're the bad guys, and on the other hand, they're victims of what they're doing. So the public employees are down there running a hustle, running a con called high salaries, high benefits. They contribute money to the campaigns of the councilmen. They get these sweetheart deals. They run up the debts. They spend the money today because they think somehow, some way, some other day, Brent or Andrew, Jonathan, or Mike are going to pay the tab. Only we don't have that kind of money. There isn't that kind of money. And when that kind of money gets done, guys like Coe and me and you are going to head out of the state. It's just not going to work. So everybody's getting screwed here, particularly the public employees who just are not paying attention to what's being done in their name. And so they go out there with their hands out, raise taxes, get themselves another raise. But every time we pay these people more money, we end up losing. Stacking up the debt. It's outrageous, and I'm sorry to steal your thunder on the call. But that's why I go crazy, because it is a crime. It would be a crime anywhere except in the councilmanic rooms, and they won't engage us on this issue. Now, one of those people, I'm broadcasting to 15 million people in this district, and at least one of those city councilmen have to be at least semi-sober and near a cell phone and call me and tell me that it's not so, because I really want to believe that it's going to be okay, only it's not. And that's why Andrew is running. Things are not good.
That's part of the scam. You can tell if there was an honest politician, they'd be on the phone with you.
Yes.
They'd be talking to the members of this community, and they're hiding, and they always hide. And so these words, what I want our politicians on our side to start using, if we can't indict and prosecute these politicians in the courts because of their corruption, then at least we should use the words that this is not called financial difficulties. This is fraud. This is embezzlement. This is larceny.
Right. And stealing the future.
Words and recognize that we're no longer dealing with politics as usual. We're dealing with a crime situation, and these aren't gentlemen that we'll sit down and have a difference of opinion with.
No. And they blow you off. You know that they're not sincere when they give you that greasy little smile and 3 to 5 minutes to make your case in front of the city council about something that requires a fair amount of time and some experts looking at it. So it's, as I say, it's all a fraud, a hustle, and a con. Brent, I want to thank you for calling in, and I want to say hello to Adele that I ran into yesterday, and also say hello to my friend Sam. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to have our Government Grifter of the Week award, but before I do that, I would like to go in here and recognize some of the wonderful people that signed up today. Thomas, I don't know where you're from, but you know who you are. You signed the petition for school choice.
I think he just now signed it.
Just a few seconds ago. So if you're listening in, thank you. Or if you were at the GBRA today, thank you. Diane, Maria, Ron, Craig, Michael, Chris, Teresa, Danette, Gail, Sandra, Judy, Michael, everybody, Norma.
And that Michael, by the way, is Mike Antonovich.
Oh, it was,
so he signed our petition today.
All right.
We've got it. That's a big endorsement.
It is huge. And, there's no better known Republican or conservative or just plain politician than Mike Antonovich. So, speaking of people, hey, Eric Chan, if you're out there, you're going to be doing the Government Grifter of the Week award here. I know you got the number, but just in case you don't, it's 866-870-5752. We hope all you folks will call in and be part of our program here. But Eric sent me his nominations, but we'll just save it until next week. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the event at the Jeffers Estate in La Cañada. Andrew, you were up there, of course, in the afternoon talking with people. Tell me about the conversations you had with people about school choice.
Well, we were right behind the sign-in desk, so when they came through, we would just ask, would you like to sign our petition of school choice? And I would say 9 out of 10 would say, school choice, yeah. And we had a principal from a public school that signed. And
whoa!
Yes,
really?
We had a counselor that was she got so fed up with LAUSD that she quit, and she's now a private counselor, and she signed. And then there was another guy that says, I'm going to sign, but don't say anything to my wife.
Right.
So there are public school educators and administrators that also believe in school choice because they're so frustrated with what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and that's the other picture that they don't want to see. When I talk with Republicans or conservatives about school choice, I always get a curious reaction. It's not one of opposition, but one of pessimism. And they say, oh, well, they're just going to kill you with this. How are you going to get this passed in a state full of Democrats? And the answer is Democrats are going to vote for this. And when you actually dig down and start having conversations, you find out that the Democrat Party at the voter level is not monolithic. Certainly the parents disagree with it, and many of the people inside of the school system itself, the teachers, there's Eric. Hey, they send their children to private schools. I've heard statistics that up to 1/3 of them send their kids to private schools, the public school teachers, and hey, 4 minutes.
All right, music maestro.
Ba-da-da-bum.
And now, live from Glendale, California, it's this week's Government Grifter Awards with special guest presenter Eric Chan. Are you there, Eric?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Hello. Good evening, gentlemen.
All right.
Eric Chan.
Hey,
go in for the legendary Juan Tierra, who is on a well-deserved vacation.
All right. You got 3 minutes. Go.
All right. Tonight, for my Government Grifter Award hosting debut, I've chosen to highlight the beautiful city of San Francisco, or San Francisco.
Okay.
As most of our listeners have heard, the city is infamous for allowing its resident vagrants and hobos to litter the streets with drug needles and poo piles. So much so that last year, a talented young man, Sean Miller, developed a smartphone app called Snapcrap.
Okay, who are your nominees? We're running short on time.
Oh, hurry up.
Yeah.
Gives them a real-time map of all the poo piles all over sidewalks of the city.
Yeah.
Tonight's honored nominees are some of the top leadership of the lovely city. Our friends at Transparent California have provided us with the data. We have 3 nominees. Number 1, London Breed, the esteemed mayor of San Francisco, with a 2018 base pay of $214,878, plus benefits of $50,009, for a grand total of $264,887.
For presiding over a poo pile. Number 2.
Exactly.
William Scott III, the chief of police of San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, you got that. Yeah. And his total pay is $394,899.
Unbelievable.
So it doesn't seem that the city has their no pooping rules being policed.
Right. And last but not least.
Not least, Alice H. Chen, manager of the Department of Public Health.
Oh, there you go.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
With a grand total pay of $375,989, even though not cleaning up piles of human feces.
All right. And the winner of this week's Government Grifter Award is?
That is number 1, Mayor Lemon Breed.
All right.
He deserves it. Hey, Eric, we hate to have hustled you along, but we got started just a little bit late here on this part of it. We hope this won't be the last time. How much time do we have left here? We got 25 seconds. In that 25 seconds, I want to thank our call screener, everybody, Eric, Andrew Coe, Jonathan, Jeff, and everybody. Don't forget EricEarly.com. You're going up against Adam Schiff. And join us here, same time next week, 8 o'clock, KRLA, Radio Free Los Angeles. We'll see you then. And don't forget to go to CaliforniaSchoolChoice.org and sign up.